Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is JLTech, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can use AWS Secrets Manager within your application. This will allow you to store all of your environment variables, whether that's database connection strings, API keys, securely and not in a web config or an app.settings.json file. So to get started, what we're going to do, we're currently inside of Visual Studio. We're just going to go ahead and make a quick API solution. So let's just go ASP.NET Core Web API. It can be a console app, it can be a Windows Forms app. Anything that can use the AWS SDK. We'll just go ahead and we'll just call this API just to keep it nice and simple. So that'll create this for us. What we will then also go and do is we're just going to go to our solution at the top here, right click and hit add. We'll say new project, and we're just going to create a class library which is C#, and in here we'll just call this Amazon, because I'm going to do some other videos in the future on like DynamoDB, so we'll do some prerequisite work here. And then what we can also then do is delete this class file because we don't need it. And let's go ahead and make some other files. So let's go ahead and first we'll create a new folder called interfaces, because we'll do this correctly, following all the best practices with dependency injection and things like that. We'll go ahead and also create another new folder, and this one will be called services. Within our interface, let's go ahead and create a new item then. This will be a type of an interface, and we'll call this, it must start with an uppercase I, but the actual name of it can be anything that you want. So we'll just call this our AWS, no we won't, we'll call it this our Secret Manager service. So in total this is our Secrets Manager service. We'll go ahead and copy this file name as well. And let's define what this service will contain. So we'll have a task, we'll make this asynchronous. So we'll have a task and we'll call this get secret async, and we'll pass in a secret key to this function. We can get rid of everything else. Let's now go to our services folder and we'll hit add, new item. And then instead of an interface this time, we're going to create a class. It'll be the exact same name as our interface, just without the I, because this isn't a class. This is going to inherit from the class. So we'll follow that and we'll click add. We'll then swap this from an internal class to a public class, and we'll inherit by using these semicolon, and we'll inherit from the Secret Manager service. Cool. So what we can do then is, if we can either hover over this and show potential fixes, you can right click and do quick actions, or you can just do Control and dot on Windows, and that'll bring up the whatever's wrong with the file. So in this case it's because we've not implemented our interface. If we go ahead and implement it, that error will go away, and we can now see our function is pulled in from our interface. What I'm going to do then, just for to actually get access to the SDK from AWS, what we'll need to do is right click our Amazon project and hit manage NuGet packages, and then from within here, if we go to browse, we can actually type in Secrets Manager, and you'll see here it's the AWS SDK.Secrets Manager. It's currently got 130 million downloads. We'll go ahead and install the latest version and we'll hit apply. Once that's in there, then what we'll then need to do is, first and foremost, if we just go to our Amazon project and if we hit add new item, we need to configure our new interface and our service that we've created, but we also need to register the AWS SDK as well for Secrets Manager. So if we go to class, we'll call this dependency injection. And we'll change this to a public class, well, a public static class actually. And then within here, we'll return a public static, and we'll give this a, it's going to return a iService collection. Now this won't, for you, as you can see, it doesn't exist for me at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll hit Control dot. That'll bring up the solution. So it's going to tell us to go ahead and install the Microsoft Extensions Dependency Injection Abstractions project. Again, you could right click, quick actions, and do it that way as well. We'll go ahead and install that. We'll call it, we'll give it a function name, so we'll just say we want to add Amazon, and then we'll have, there you go, IntelliSense is picking this up for us, so we'll just tab over that. and then we can return the services back. So the reason for we're doing this is because we've created a separate project. What we don't want to have to do in our program.cs is have loads of different dependency injection and services getting registered. We can do that per project. It keeps it neater, especially if this project then wants to get used in another API. We don't have to worry about dependency injection. It'll all get registered through here. So what we'll do then, we'll go to services, add singleton, and we're going to register the Amazon Secrets Manager. We'll access the service provider through here. So if we just say SP and do like an arrow function, if you will, we can then say new Amazon Secrets Manager client, and then this will expect a region. So we can just say region endpoint, and then I'm using London, which is EU West 2, depending on wherever your AWS account's located, whether it's in America, in London, wherever it is, put your region there. And then, so that'll register AWS, and then we also need to register our internal interface. So let's say services, add singleton, Secrets Manager service, Secrets Manager service, and we're going to register this as a singleton. There we go. So if we now go to our API project, and if we go to dependencies, right click, add project reference, and then if we hit projects and solution, we're going to tick our Amazon project, which is the one we've created, and we want to add a reference to that so our main API can access that Amazon project. Let's go ahead and do that. And then if we then go to our program.cs, we just add a new line here. We can then say Amazon, which is our project name. So if you've called yours My Awesome Secret Vault, for instance, you would type in My Awesome Secret Vault. So we're in Amazon. We then want to target dependency injection, and then we want to add Amazon. And then from within here, we can pass in the builder and the services collection. So that's now in there. It's going to register the actual Amazon SDK. It's also going to register our internal interface as well. And then while we're in here, I just want to create, I guess this could work for now actually, and we'll dive on to kind of how we can structure this in different environments. Let's just go for very basic for now. So this should work. So if we go back to our services, Secret Manager service, if in here, so we can just pass in Amazon Secrets Manager, and we'll just call this Amazon Secrets Manager. I might call this Secrets Manager actually, just so it's not as long. And then we can then just create a private read-only version of that, Amazon Secrets Manager, and then we'll set the value of that local private read-only version to the one through our dependency injection. And then what we can do within our secret function here, we'll put it in a try catch. You don't necessarily have to, but we'll just throw that if you really wanted to. Or again, it's not required, so we won't do it in this case actually. And then what we can say is we can say our response is going to be await. So we're going to await this function. We're going to talk to the Secrets Manager SDK. We want to try and get a secret value async. And then for this, we need to send a request model with that. So if we just hit tab on that, and then if we just bring in some curly braces, and then just because this doesn't look as nice and I have OCD, we'll get rid of those secrets manager.model. Again, it's going to complain now because it doesn't know where that file lives, but if we just hit control and dot, we can say use an Amazon secrets manager.model, and then it just makes our code a lot neater. And then, so what this is going to do is it's going to go to AWS, it's going to try and retrieve a secret, but how does it know what secret that we actually want to access? So there we go, we will then pass in a secret ID, and we will pass in a secret key. Once we have that response, we can just say return response.secret string. Now there's a lot of other things you can return. If we just look in here, we could look at the binary, we could return the created date, we could return the name of the secret, we could return the version, but in this case we want to return the secret string. And I have also just realized this should have been a function that returned a string. So if we just go ahead and update our interface as well, this needs to return a string. So that should now work. So what we can do to see if we want to go ahead and test this is if we go to our program.cs, and let's just get rid of this weather forecast. And what we can do is we can say app map get, and we'll just call this secret. And then we can pass in a async. We're going to expect a parameter, so we'll call this again, we'll expect a secret key. And then we also want to pass in through dependency injection our internal service. So we'll say secret manager service. We'll just call this secret manager service. And then we can do an arrow function again of sorts. And then in here, we can say our response is equals to await our secret manager, our secret manager service, get the secret from our secret key that we pass in, and then we can just return results.ok, and we can return that response. Now, for this to work, you will need to make sure you have your AWS profile registered and loaded. I've already done this, and I did cover this in a previous video. I'll link that in the description, and that'll essentially talk you through installing, downloading the Amazon command line interface, and then also registering your local IAM user access key that will be required for local development. So if you start getting errors at this point saying you can't connect to AWS, or it doesn't have permissions, or it can't find a secret, this will be the reason why. So before we actually can start testing, we need to go over to AWS and create ourselves a secret. So if you haven't used Secrets Manager before, we just go back to the home page of AWS, and we can, in the search bar up here, we can just type in Secrets Manager. And you can see I've already got some secrets here, and you can see I have an alias on one of them, but we can go ahead and store a new secret. We can do various different types. So if you're using an RDS database, you can store raw credentials, but we just want to go for another type of secret, and we want to store plain text. I'm not actually going to connect to a database in this video, but I do have an example connection string like so. So we can store that in there, and that's what we'll access. We'll go ahead. For the encryption key, I'm going to use the default one. I'm not going to go into like the detail of KMS keys, but what you can do is you can create your own KMS key if you want to store your kind of secrets that way. I'm just going to use the default one as it works out the box for me. We'll then need to give it a name. So the kind of format here is it's asking for the setting in general. So we'll say this is dev, and then we'll give it our secret name. You can also do dashes. So what I like to do, although that's the format, what I've tend to do in my projects is I'll say, let's call this my connection string, and then I'll prefix and I'll say dev, like so. You can add a description, you can add some tags if you really want to. I'm not going to bother. It's all too advanced for this video. And then again, you can rotate your keys automatically. Again, too advanced for this video. If you do want me to cover it, let me know in the comment section. But for now, we'll keep this nice and simple. We'll hit next. It's going to give us some code snippets for kind of like Java, JS, Python, C#, which is basically what we've done. So you can see here, we've created a request, although we've kind of done it all under one function rather than doing it this way, which is absolutely fine. And then it's just going to go ahead and call that client through the SDK. So we've already done that. Let's go ahead and hit store. So you see here we now have connection string dev. Let's go ahead and store a new one, just because we'll get to this shortly. So again, we'll do plain text. Let's go ahead and copy that connection string again. This time I will say production, my production, and then we'll leave that as that. Everything else will stay the same. So in this case, we'll call this connection string prod. So again, same name there as other secret, but we're just adding a stage alias on top. It will keep it nice and simple. Let's go ahead and hit next again. We don't want a secret rotate that key, and we'll hit store. So if we hit the little refresh, we've now got two examples here. We've got connection string dev and connection string prod. We're just going to focus on dev at the minute. So what we can say is, well, we can debug this. So let's go ahead and hit HTTPS, and let's see if we get any errors or if this works. Looking good so far. That's all looking what we expect. So let's go up here, and we want to go ahead and grab our value from connection string dev. And then if we open up Swagger, we can pass in that value here. And if all being well, you can see we have got our response back from the AWS SDK from our Secrets Manager, and this is the dev one. And if we can now type in prod, and it will return our production one. So you can see production, and again back to dev. Now we don't really want to have to keep updating our environment variable whenever we want to access it. It's a bit clunky, so this is how I do it. So what I would do in this case is if we go ahead if we just stop debugging, we will go to our API and we'll create a new kind of object in here. So we'll call this AWS resources, and we'll call this stage alias, and then we'll give this a version. So this is our main appsettings.json. So if you're kind of familiar with the ASP.NET environment variables, if you're in production, it will use this one. If you're in development, it will use the .development version. Excuse me. And you can have loads of different ones. So you could have staging, you could have dev, you could have test, whatever it is. You can have as many as you want. So this one will be called prod. And then I'm just going to copy this. And then I'm also going to put it in our development folder. And then this one will be dev. So what we can do now is, let's go to our Amazon project up here, and we're going to add a new class. And this is going to be called AWS resources. So I'm just going to match that exact object. If we kind of think of that as like a JSON, well, it is a JSON. So in here, I'm just going to say, give me a new string, and this is going to be called stage alias, like so, and I'll just initialize this to an empty string. And then what we can do in our program.cs is we can, above our dependency injection, we can say builder.services.configure, and then we'll pass in our AWS resources view model. And then now we just need to actually pass in the value. So again, we'll say builder configuration get section, and this will be AWS resources. So what that is going to do is we're going to, first of all, we're going to get the configuration to our raw string, which is going to get from our app settings. So it's going to fetch this. And then essentially we're going to bind that to a view model. So now we can access that with our dependency injection wherever we want in our app. So what we can do then is, if we go to our secret manager service, we can, at the top here, if we bring in iOptions, and again, we may need to do a control dot and bring in Microsoft extensions.options, and then we can bring in our view model, AWS resources, and we'll just call this AWS resources. And then again, that's our dependency injection copy. So let's make a local copy. So we'll say private read only, but instead of bringing in iOptions, we want to actually get out the true view model so we can access it. So we'll say AWS resources, give that a local name, and then we'll set the value of that from our AWS resources dot the value. And then what that'll do is we can now access the view model, so we can get access to the stage alias or anything else. So if we go ahead and we say we also want, I don't know, a region, for instance, we can then also go ahead and create a region in our view model, and that'll automatically bind, and we can access that through dependency injection throughout our video. So it's really handy, really useful. What we will then do is, let's just get rid of state region. If we go back to Secrets Manager service, so what we're doing in here, we're currently just passing in the secret key, but we want to kind of do that from our stage alias. So what I normally do, I'm just going to bring this down a line and make a new function. So we'll say private string, and let's say get secret name, and then we'll pass in a secret key. And then what all I'm going to do is I'm going to say if we don't have, so if say if string is null or empty, AWS resources stage alias. So if we don't have an alias for whatever reason, I'm just going to go ahead and return the secret key that we passed in. If we do have one, I'm going to do some string interpolation, and I probably butchered that word, so apologies. And if we use a $sign here, I can say, actually go and fetch me the secret key with a hyphen with the AWS resources stage alias. So if we pass in connection string, it's going to look in here and it's going to say, well, it's going to return the secret key dash the stage alias. And if we look at our secrets manager, that's exactly what we've stored. We've stored connection string dash dev, connection string dash prod. So what we can do then is we can copy this function, and instead of passing in the secret key directly, we'll pass in this function, and into this function we'll pass in the secret key, and that'll return us the environment specific key that we need. So if we go ahead and hit debug on that now, and if we just go ahead and copy our, which was connection string, so I'll remember that. So if we now just type in, again, we don't need the environment variable this time, we can just say, give me the connection string. And because we are in dev, you can see actually we can't find the specified secret. So let's go ahead and see what went wrong. So if we go ahead and if we say, okay, so I made a mistake actually. So this should have been if is null or empty, not if it isn't. If we debug that again now, let me know in the comment section if you spotted that issue before I did. And then let's go ahead and type in connection string. And now you can see we've got access automatically to dev. So let's have a look, let's add a breakpoint and let's see exactly what's happening. So if we just press F9 here, or we'll do it on the actual function. And if we call that again, we call that again, execute, you can see we're passing in connection string. We have my recording software in the way, which is a bit annoying. So apologies. That didn't help me either. Come on, Windows. If we step down over there, which is just F10, you can see we passed in connection string. We're then going to return our AWS stage alias as string interpolation, and then that's going to return that to here. So our secret ID is the key that Secrets Manager actually has, and you can see that has a response, and then we just return the secret string. But we can actually look over response, and we can see this is our name, this is whatever it is. So if we was in production then, so let's quickly set ourselves to production. So if we just say in API, if we go to properties and launch settings, what we can do is in HTTP, we're actually in HTTPS, if we just change this to production, and then if we debug again, and if we now go to Swagger and we type in connection string, you can see we'll pass through our stage alias, this time is prod, so we'll pass through, and you can see we've now got the connection string for production, and we could then go ahead and we could use this in a DB context. We could use this elsewhere. It doesn't really matter where we want to use it. We could use that within anywhere within our code. So that's about it. That's how we can use the AWS SDK for Secrets Manager. I have really only showed you the getting of a secret value. The SDK does have a few other options like creating secrets, deleting secrets, forcing a key rotation. However, in my experience, that's not something I've ever actually needed in a production app. That's more for like an admin app, if you will. So in 99% of cases, this will be enough. We have already stored our secret in AWS. We just want to access it rather than storing a credential in a appsettings.json, because in a real production world, we would never store a connection string in an app settings or a web config. You would always store them in like an Azure Vault, or in this case, AWS Secrets Manager. So there you have it, everyone. That is, again, how to use the Secrets Manager within AWS. If you did like this video, or if you did learn something from it, please go ahead and drop a like rating on this video or subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.